In '68, I went to work for the group of 10 congressmen who were the key opponents to the Vietnam War and were organized and vocal about it. And to give a translation of it, you would have to think if there were 10 Republican congressmen during the run-up to the Iraq War, if they had organized and held public hearings opposing it and bringing in experts to explain how disastrous the planning was and the policies. So it was quite a radical group at the time.
People our age will recognize names like Don Fraser, Don Edwards, Ben Rosenthal, Bob Eckhart.
Yep.
You know, and your experience with this group, despite their putative liberalism, was astonishing.
Well, they were symptomatic of the culture as a whole. Only one of them, I think, had a wife who worked. They were from 10 to 20 years older than I was, and they had come up in politics at a time when politics was a man's game. Women were largely volunteers, raised money, addressed envelopes, sent out appeals. And in Congress itself, although there were thousands of women working on Capitol Hill, for the most part they were all secretaries or receptionists. So they didn't have any experience in working with women as peers. I think, they'd gone to law school, it had all been men. So a professional environment for them was an all-male environment.
Yeah.
And so the first problem was that they paid me close to between a half and 2/3 of what they paid the man who had had the job before me.
Which was typical everywhere.
Which unfortunately was typical everywhere. And then my paycheck would get held up, wouldn't get deposited in the account. And I rotated the payrolls of the different congressmen. And when I objected to this, they said, well, isn't your husband working? Has your husband stopped working? I said, I write my own checks. I don't like to have my own checks bouncing. Well, we'll get it cleared up. But it kept happening, and it kept happening. And as Ben Rosenthal said when we finally got together about this, he said, well, paying a woman is just not the same as important as paying a man.
Yeah. And at meetings, I know, and I've known female lawyers who have expressed this, people in their 50s now, treated badly, called a crazy lady, objections if you dared to make a comment about something. This was really quite a different world that you were pioneering, really, in which you were pioneering.
Well, and they were, I have to say I learned a lot. About negotiating and how power works, but they were as liberal as the political system allowed, and they did not have a clue about women's rights.
This excerpt is brought to you by the Massachusetts School of Law, the leader of reform in legal education and a leader in multimedia education for the public. To view the full interview and for a full listing of MSL's programs, log on to mslaw.edu.